Hey guys, Shay Myers with the Waihi Produce. Welcome to the Produce Common Sense, the beta version of the Produce Common Sense podcast. I couldn't wait to have this conversation with Stuart, who's sitting with me right now, because we're looking at this heat wave. We're looking at the challenges that surround us environmentally right now, and what do those mean? And I have this. Well, it's going to be like a confessional, actually, because I'm this and it'll be interesting to see where you come in on this, and maybe I'll put you on the spot, and you'll have to. I don't know how this will turn out. From a global warming or climate change perspective, the extreme conservative side, the left side's it's hogwash, or it's starting to shift a little bit, maybe to okay, climate change is happening, but it's not human caused, versus the extreme right being humans have done everything and we're ruining the planet. We've got to do all kinds of really aggressive things to fix it. So hopefully you're comfortable going here, because I don't. Okay. If you're, we'll see. We'll see. But Stuart Reitz, did I say that right? Stuart Reitz. He's the director of the Malheur County Experiment Station. What an experiment station is an extension of Oregon State University. If I say something wrong, tell me. Where the regional producers and the university fund experiments to improve agricultural practices, to try and improve the way that we grow onions, maybe the fertility practices that we use, the planting methodology, the seed spacing, everything, irrigation inclusive. And Stuart's been doing that for a long time. He's got his PhD in what?
My PhD is actually in entomology, so I'm a bug guy.
A bug guy.
But coming here, we've kind of expanded out to do all of those other kind of production practices to help the growers here locally.
So what I really brought him here for, though, is the heat that's going on, like I began with. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I have to say is I have traditionally been a climate change critic, or no, not a critic. That's the wrong word. I've been a climate change skeptic.
Okay.
So, and I honestly want to know that the hard thing is if people have seen, what is that? The Social Dilemma, for example, which is a new Netflix. I don't know if you've seen that or not. So in the Social Dilemma, they talk about how the media that we consume now has this confirmation bias. If you're searching in a search engine in Google, for example, it gives you the kind of thing that you want to see, not what you should see, kind of like what the media is doing right now in some ways. So, tell me what I need to know. Tell me what I need to know. Is it? I mean, in every way, and I'm being sincere here. I would like to know, and I've asked. You're not the first person I've asked this, which is why I'm kind of moving the pendulum a little. But I wonder how much we're affecting it, how real it is, and then what it means to us moving forward.
Yep. All very good and complex questions. So we actually have been looking at this. So the Malheur Experiment Station's been in business since 1942.
And Malheur is Malheur County. It's just a little county about the size of Rhode Island on the Idaho-Oregon border, about 50 miles west of Boise, just to put that in perspective.
There you go. Yep. So we've maintained a weather station, and other experiment stations have their weather stations. And recently we've been looking at some of the historical weather data, and it clearly shows that temperatures overall have been rising over those last 70 years, in particular over the last 20 years or so. And it's not just that temperatures are rising, but we tend to be seeing more extremes, so hotter hots, colder colds, phenomenon like that. So weather is kind of a short-term look at the conditions. What's the temperature today? And climate is definitely a longer-term phenomenon or issue. So we can say, yes, the weather is very different than it was in 1950. And you can say, well, okay, is that climate change? That's debatable, but there definitely has been an upward trend again in temperatures. And again, we're seeing these more extreme events. So the heat wave that we're on the verge of or have been going through for the last few days. The forecasts say it'll be around for the next week to 10 days or so. And that, 10 days of 100 degrees plus temperatures is unusual for this area. We've had a couple of other heat waves like that in previous years, recently in 2013, 2015. So it's not unheard of. But again, it's different than what we have seen in the past.
Let me add some perspective there too, just because I didn't tell me if I'm off on. Because this is just a Google search to the local the weather station. But statistically speaking, we average 6 days per summer over 100 degrees. Statistically, so it used to be 5. It's now trended up to closer to 6. There's been a few years that have been. I think the max was 11 days over 100 degrees. We're looking, but the difference is it's 11 days over 100, not 11 days consecutive over 100 days. And right now we're, 6 days in over 100. Is that where we're at? 5, 6? And the 10-day forecast, I don't think it's coming off of 100 yet. When I looked yesterday, there wasn't anything. Is it?
It's supposed to be 100 to 106 for the next.
As far out as they're, within the next 10 days.
10
So we're going to
days.
end up with 15, maybe 20 days, maybe longer, consecutive days over 100 degrees.
And
that's different than
different.
6 days over 100 over the duration of a whole summer.
Right. And that presents a lot of problems for agriculture as well as the people working in agriculture.
Okay, so weather is over the term of a year, and climate would be, are we talking that should be measured in the term of a decade, or is that over the course of a millennium or
tens of thousands of years even. Yeah.
Okay, so we can agree then, I guess, I don't know that I can agree, but I should agree. I can agree that, look, we're growing sweet potatoes. That's one example on our farm, growing sweet potatoes, which would have been totally, it's unheard of still, but it's doable. Barely, where we're at from the number of heat units that we get. In fact, while this heat is hurting onions, it's actually good for, other than sweet potatoes, watermelons. It seems like it's decent for. What is it good for anything?
Not when it gets to.
What's that number? Like it's about 92 on onions. Is that the right number?
It's probably a little bit lower as the ideal temperature for them. And some other crops have a little bit higher ideal temperatures, but when it gets to 105 or whatever, then everything begins to suffer at some point. And so some crops can do better under a little bit hotter conditions, but this type of heat wave is not beneficial to anything. Crop.
Okay. So I learned something there because the argument from the guys down south is like you can have as much heat as you want, right? And then you look at where they grow. In California, they're a lot hotter than we are. The difference being in the South, they might get the heat units, maybe not even this high, but the humidity's high. So they're not getting all that transevaporation, right?
Drying.
So I don't know if that's the difference, but okay, so we can look at it and we're saying, okay, it really is getting warmer. How do we deal with it? Like, what are the long-term, what's the decade ramifications, like with over the next course of the decade? What do we do? And then what does it mean even further out?
So if we are going through this phase where we're going to have consistently hotter and hotter temperatures, a lot of it comes down to breeding. Can you breed plants that are more adaptable to extreme temperatures?
But breeding takes a long time.
That's a very long-term management tool. And beyond that, there really are limitations to what you can do. So the plants, just physiologically, it's sort of like everything in agriculture. It's the Goldilocks principle. If it's too cool, they don't grow well. They hit an ideal point, and then above that, they stop growing. They just physiologically shut down. So you have to recognize that if we continue to have a heat wave like this, the plants will make it through, but that growth opportunity that they would have had. So if we normally are at 90 degrees in June and we're now 105, that's a lost opportunity for the onions to grow, and that just translates into a smaller onion at the end of the season.
Lower yields, lower total pounds coming out of the field.
Right. So yes, so it's something we need to adapt to. And in the short term, you have to make a distinction between heat stress from the high temperatures and water stress. So fortunately, we have irrigation water available for the crop, but simply running a lot of water into the field or over irrigating is not necessarily going to help the crop. Again,
because it consumes less, right? It's
consumes
basically
less,
in this like hibernation state or something like that. It's just
Exactly.
it's stationary. It's not
actively growing
right.
at that
So
point.
it actually needs less water.
Right.
What about? So it made me think of two things when you said that, and I had actually someone say this on LinkedIn yesterday. What about something like a product like sunshade in the heat like this? Would it be beneficial?
Yes, it would be if you can. There's a cost to applying it, and
Right.
B, applying it to onions is a little bit of a challenge. So onions have those upright, narrow leaves, so getting it well applied across the plant is tricky. But yeah, it's something that can help reduce the temperature, the leaf surface temperature, and help the plant better manage or better deal with the heat stress.
Okay, so that's a short-term solution to the problem, or maybe something that you could continue to do over while you're waiting for the breeding, or as the breeding of the varieties gets better. I just I'm looking towards the future, and I'm like, okay, I keep telling everyone, if we're here in 5 years, we'll be here in 50 years. But the next 5 years feel overwhelmingly difficult to overcome. And I mean, we've got, commodity prices in our area on our core crops that are abysmally bad. We're overproducing. You've got some better returns on wheat and corn, but those are short-term drought markets that are not looking like they're going to have long-term trends that are higher. Ag in general is just a really challenging sector of the economy right now. And it doesn't matter. 2 years ago, you wouldn't even have heard me talking about this. I mean, it's always hard. But you can hear me or are you hearing that when you're talking to farmers? Like the exhaustion?
Yeah, and I hear a lot about, because of the prices, growers feel that they're just trading money. They're not making money. They're, growing a crop, getting a little bit for it, but then it just goes straight back out in the production costs. So they really are struggling. And yes, the bumps in wheat and corn are great to see, but it's probably not a, sustainable, high profit, high return crop that onions have historically been. And onions have shifted to more of a commodity than a specialty crop, if you will.
Yeah, that's because you guys have helped us get too good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the research. It's his fault. Thank you for being here. I hopefully, for those that are listening or watching in this case, there's some value here. I hope to do this and have these types of conversation kind of on a weekly basis as we move forward, and hopefully discuss things that are related to, what's happening in real time, whether it's labor, whether it's, I love the conversation around organic production, for example, because I feel like I'm not an organic proponent, but they have done a phenomenal job from a marketing standpoint. So why is it that the value is there? Why is it challenging? What are the things that don't line up from a common sense standpoint? And what are the environmental ramifications? What are the yield reductions, and all of those things? Because I don't think we have those conversations, at least not yet. And so thank you for being here. If you like it, throw a comment here. Tell me what else you would like to hear about, so that I can bring you, so I can invite the cool people to come and converse with me, and I can learn from them. Because what I want to do is learn with you. I want to share the knowledge that I have, but I also want to gain knowledge, and as I'm gaining knowledge, share that knowledge with you, because that's what this is about. I'll see you guys later. Thanks, Stuart.
Okay, thank you.